nothing like waking up to the fact that our Social Security numbers have been hacked. Everybody's. The fact that we have a global health scare with this new mpox. Also, our debt, we spent $34 billion, yesterday, to make it go to an all-time high of $35 trillion in debt that we're not going down on. And the Fed is wanting to lower rates, which will make more people spend, which will make inflation go up. Talk about being in a bad way. Not only that, Kennedy working with Harris, has that been the plan the whole time? When we were trying to say, look, Trump, you've got to work alongside Kennedy. You've got to figure something out. He's a liberal, but you got to figure something out because his percentage could sway the election. And now he's wanting to join Harris. Whew. That's a lot to take in. Let's talk about these headlines today and how us as someone in the conservative realm, the preppers movement, the fact that we just want common sense again. How do we look at this and say, what's our way forward? Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up. It does mean the world to me. And again, we ask that you share this message because it helps us not be held down as much as we're being held down lately. Now, the stories for the day, it's kind of like we talked about yesterday, how we said it was all our fault and we should be offended. A lot of these things we can't help, I understand. But our proactiveness and the fact that we can try to handle as much as we can as preppers, as someone who wants to think in a wise way, to say, you know what, yes, we see the issues. Now, how can we hedge against that? That's the thing that we do as preppers. We build insurances against it. We hedge against the craziness that's going on. So first, let's talk about Kennedy. So there's a new story that said that Kennedy is actually trying to vie for a cabinet position in Harris's campaign. Now, I've told you for a long time, Kennedy is just a liberal. I've never supported him as a third-party candidate. But I did say he is an asset, and I think Trump should try to tap that to a point where they can start working together. I've been saying that, build this unity ticket, unity coalition, because the Democrats pretty much left Kennedy. Now, that doesn't mean he's not a Democrat at heart or a liberal. But if you would learn to maybe work with him and not to try to harm him, that 6, 7, 8, 9% that he's got could do, it could swing the election. Well, there's a story that just came out that he has made calls to Harris campaigns to say, hey, I want to throw my support behind you. Is there a cabinet position for me? The crazy thing is Harris turned him down. So why in the world would Kennedy and supporters of his and libertarians, independent thinking people still say that they're going to support Harris or going to support the Democrat platform, especially when they just declined him again to join the blue side? To me, this is the perfect opportunity to Trump say, open arms, come, let's work together. We don't get along. We do not see things eye to eye, but you could help on health and human services. You could help with how we favor and look at regulation. There's some things that Kennedy does stand for that most people would probably embrace when it comes to those issues. But wolves in sheep's clothing. If he goes to the Democrats after they've blown him off, after they've told him he's a sellout, after they pretty much have just disowned him, to me that speaks very highly of how strong the establishment is, even to pull back someone that they disregarded as just a joke. Now, what will happen? Kennedy is not powerful enough to actually run for election. Everybody knows he has no shot. He actually won't even get Ross Perot numbers. But this election is so tight that his 7 to 10% could sway the whole election. Now the question is, let's think 4D chess. Two things can happen. He can push more towards the Democratic nomination and hopefully pull some votes from Kamala, which I told you a long time ago, I don't believe that actually is what is happening. I believe he's always going to pull votes from the middle or the conservative side, people who tend to lean towards Trump if, Kennedy wasn't in the race. So now it's Trump's time to open his arms and then work together and try to do all he can to make Kennedy support him. It's just my thoughts. Number 2, the debt is skyrocketing. Just yesterday, Zero Hedge reported that our debt just went up by $34 billion in one day. Total debt is $35.16 trillion. I think those numbers are so big that most people can't fathom that. When we talk about $1 million, most people can't even fathom in this economy having an extra $100,000 or $50,000 or even $1,000. You know, 66% of Americans could not even come up with $1,000 to $2,000 to pay for something if something bad were to happen in their home or had to replace an appliance without using a credit card. So when we think, okay, 1,000, 2,000 is untouchable, then we think of 100,000 or a million. It's unbelievable, you know, millionaires and things like that. Now we're talking billions. Now we're talking trillions. We can't grasp that. What I want you to understand, though, is this debt is unsustainable and it is bigger than we can afford. Now, you know why they want to lower interest rates? Not only does it benefit the person in power right now, which is the Democrats, it also helps them pay the interest on this debt, because if the interest rates keep climbing, America can't afford its interest note on its debt. It's unbelievable. When they lower interest rate, everybody thinks, oh, the economy's going to do great. Stock market may go up. It may melt up. But the truth be told, it does not help Main Street, because money will inflame more and inflate more and make our dollar even more worthless, because they're not going to stop spending. There's a video that came out that the Taliban was doing a parade, a parade in Afghanistan with all our equipment. It's just miles and miles of them doing a military parade. And guess what? We paid for it all, because this administration left every bit of it over there. We are so frivolous with our spending. If we do not pay attention to this, not only are we spending way too much personally, we're spending way too much as a government. And therefore, we are watching our own government become the new Rome, to where we will seek to make it and be successful in America or in the world if we don't get a handle on a balanced budget and quit spending money. You know, I preach to you all the time, you need to be independent and try not to spend your own money. However, we're electing people who are blowing our money. And guess what? When they're blowing our money, they're actually causing us to be more impoverished, because they're making the economy work against the normal folks of America. You know how hard it is to come by $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 for some people. What's going to happen when all of a sudden the interest rates make for more inflation, which makes for more money needed to be given out in the economy, where the government prints more money and therefore we have more and more debt? We are becoming unsustainable by the day. Please, if I could tell you to do anything, learn to buy some assets. Learn to get on a balanced budget for yourself. Try to be more independent. Because if you keep putting yourself in piles of debt, I believe this unsustainable weight in America is going to make for a harder time for personal Americans to afford their own debts and to be able to make it without the government needing to hand money to you. And therefore, when you are on the payroll of the government, when you are getting handouts from the government, therefore you are being controlled by the government. Over 2/3 of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, or have no savings and have to rely on credit cards each and every month, or have to borrow money just to get through. Now for you, are you sacrificing for your wants and needs each and every month? Are you worried about the interest rates with credit cards? Do you feel like you can never get out of the hole that you're in? Well, there's a lot of truth to that. When you think about 20, 25, 30% interest rates and you're paying minimums, you will never see the light of day when it comes to your debt. Now, I don't like people borrowing money, but when we talk about trying to make sure that we can control our debts and control our money, then I believe American financing can help a lot of individuals. If there's a way that you can turn around and refinance your home, or use some of the money out of your home to then turn around and lower your interest rates on your debt, sometimes that may be the best opportunity to take advantage of. Get the interest rates lower, so then therefore you can control your debt. Because when you can control your debt and you can get out of debt, then you can start climbing and building a true budget for yourself and start seeing financial independence. When I was young and we first married, I felt like I had to buy everything on the credit card because I could not have enough money. And I thought, well, I got to have this, I got to have this. Then I started realizing really quickly, these credit cards are like, they're dangerous, because we don't realize how much we're spending and how much when you pay the minimums, and we see this interest rate being so high, we don't realize for a small little purchase, it may take years to get out of debt. So let our friends at American Financing help you by lowering your interest on your debt by doing a refinance or getting some of your money out of your home. Now, again, I would challenge you never to borrow money unless it's an absolute have to. But in cases when you're paying 25 to 30% interest, this may be the best opportunity that you can get. If you could lower that to 5 or 6% or 7%, think of how much you can do extra and put on principal each and every month. Check out our friends at American Financing. The link is in the description. And 2 more stories that I think we need to pay attention to. I told you a few days ago about the Mpox global warning. I told you they were going to plan on coming out with it because of the Congo situation, it was spreading. Now, is this something you should be worried about? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm not worried about it. But here's what I am worried about. Does this give an excuse to be precautionary when it comes to how we vote? That is what I'm worried about. Is this an excuse to control certain parts of our population, especially in liberal areas? That is what I'm concerned about. So that is where we have to really pay attention. I'm not worried about what the WHO says. I could care less what Tedros says. But I believe what he can do is impact and influence a lot of governments to withhold movements and cause more problems for Americans who just want freedom. We have an administration that is literally just fawning over the WHO and more global movements, and we have to be very careful and conscientious of this. Right now, you're not going to see Harris or anything say anything about Mpox and another global situation because they knew the last one did not work too well. We're in election season. But let's say it starts really ramping up in about 2 months. And, it's kind of kicked around. Some states just say, we need to be very precautious. And then it sways an election. You wait to January. If the Democrats win, January, this quote-unquote health scare is going to lock down everything. That's just my thoughts. Because then she'll have nothing to worry about. It gives her an excuse to really work through building more control elements because hey, we have a global health scare we need to pay attention to. There's no more elections coming up, and to be honest with you, she would have time to set agendas. Remember what Yuval Harari said just a few weeks ago for the WEF. He said the biggest scare, the biggest warning, the biggest plea, the biggest push against globalism is Trump. If Trump wins, our whole plan is destroyed. Now that is the second in command. The mind and the wisdom and the brains behind the WEF and Klaus. Pay attention. This will allow for things to be implemented, not because you believe it, but it allows for them to manipulate governments and how things are ran and done. Pay attention to this. Now, can this strain cause problems? Maybe so. I think that's the second thing. I think that's the second worry in this health scare. First worry is, more control. That's what you're seeing. It's kind of like that second situation I just said about the dollar. The more financial problems they cause, the more they're going to come to be the solution. You put your heads out and you're now living in a socialist government, in a socialist nation. This is another way to control not only your dollars, but now control your movement again. Pay attention to this Mpox. Not because you're worried about the Mpox, but worried about the pandemonium around it. And lastly, probably the most important story. Raw alerts came out, and of course there's a lot of other reports that came out that said that every one of our Social Security numbers have been manipulated, manufactured, and also stolen. Now, we always tell you about making sure that you have virtual private network like a VPN, that you're trying to get your information off the World Wide Web by using people like Incognito or whomever you're wanting to use. We talk about making sure that you're taking care of your home and guarding your home and making sure that you're protecting yourself. Well, when you can't opt out of a system with Social Security and you are given a Social Security number at birth, and that Social Security number tracks you and shows you exactly where you're at all times and how your money comes to you and where you work, why you work, when you work, and how much money you make. Everything dealing with your medical, your financial, your physical, and your mental well-being all depends on that number. That digitized number. Now they've just been compromised. How safe are we when we try to do all these things to protect ourselves and all of a sudden our main form of identity is now compromised? If they can compromise that, and like last week, if they can all of a sudden hit a campaign like Trump's campaign and get information they want, if they can all of a sudden hack our grid, if they can all of a sudden hack our military, all these things have happened this year. When is it to a point where this hack is going to be something that is irrefutable and unreplaceable, and the fact that we can't change it and is irreversible, and this hack becomes where Your Social Security numbers are compromised because all of a sudden they've borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt in your name. Or they've taken your home because they've hacked into your title. Or they've taken the fact of your life insurance or your money or your estate or your retirement, all because they were able to get your Social Security number. This is serious. And the sad thing is, a lot of this goes back to the fact that government should be protecting these things. If they're making you opt into something that you can't opt out of, like Social Security, like the fact of how they spend their money, or our money and tax dollars that they're spending, how do you think that they cannot control and take care of these hacks from happening? It's amazing. It's like us saying, well, look, we're going to leave all our doors unlocked and just hope for the best that no one will come in and actually rob us. That's exactly what's happening. We're giving all our information to the government without us really wanting to, such as our Social Security number, such as our finances, such as our taxes. I mean, such as the fact that elections going on with Trump's hack, and all of a sudden the situation is none of our information is actually safe anymore because the government can't control what's being hacked and not. Every one of these stories go back to saying government has failed us. So just like yesterday when I told you in the video that I may offend you, and if you haven't watched the video, you need to go back. These things you may not can help. So then it comes down to you as what does independence, freedom, and liberty actually looks like? And that's why you have to take control of these responsibilities and information. Does that mean you can't get out of Social Security? No, you can't. That money's still going there. But you better figure out other ways that you can make money than turn around, put it up, and make sure you're buying assets, hard assets, tangible assets, and make sure that you're putting up as much money as you can. Because what if all of a sudden you can't depend on your Social Security? What if all of a sudden you can't depend on your 401k? Because again, we're spending money like crazy as a country, and therefore it may, of course, affect the market too. If all of a sudden the market fell down and your Social Security was hacked, what money and what assets would you fall back on? Don't believe it's not going to happen, because it can't. We're not even going to talk about crypto and the fact of being able to hold on to your money. If they can hack the Social Security numbers, don't you think they can pretty much hack a crypto exchange or lock up a crypto exchange? It's not the fact that they can get your funds, but they can lock the grid down or lock the exchange down to where you can access your funds. It's not the fact that they need what you have. It's the fact that they can lock up what you have. Isn't that funny? It's like the NMLS. It doesn't matter if you believe it. It matters is how they can make sure that they can control the movement of certain areas around the situation when it comes to the NMLS. It's not the NMLS. It's the fact of how they can take that data and that information and utilize it to control different aspects around your life. These 4 headlines are scary, definitely. But here, again, proactive, like we talked about yesterday. Start controlling your food. Start controlling your finances better. If you're not on a balanced budget, if you're not trying to cut your grocery bills in half, if you're not watching your energy spending, hey, you know what? Insurance has went up 55% this year. Auto insurance 55%. So that means you can't keep buying these new vehicles because they're going to cost you more and you can't afford them. Trump said yesterday he was going to cut energy bills in half. That's awesome. I hope he does. But also the fact is, it's too much regulation, too much monopolization, and the more that we allow these entities to control our dollars, and the more that the government can put and infiltrate these situations, the more that we're losing control, i.e. our Social Security number, i.e. our taxes. My goal is to take care of my family the very best I can. I can't control these 4 things. I can't stop NMLS. I cannot stop the government from spending money. I cannot stop RFK from going to Kamala. I cannot stop a lot of those things from happening. But what I can do is I can make sure that I'm taking care of my family the very best I can. Keeping them out of the crazy school system of government schools. Not relying on just the federal government to take care of me with Social Security, and me opting into a 401k, that's one thing. But I don't want to put all my eggs in those baskets. I want to make sure that I can control assets myself by taking care of things I need. Think of how much food is worth when all of a sudden food is not able to be gotten. Think of how much real estate's worth when all of a sudden people need a place to go and grow food. Think of how special it would be to have livestock if you needed food and you're the one that has it. That stuff can be way more valuable than what your money in Social Security or 401ks would be. Think of how valuable propane tanks would be if you needed to light a grill because the grill was down because someone hacked it. We're to a point where we have to make sure that we're being proactive and making sure we see these stories. And yes, we cannot affect any one of these 4 stories, but we can learn from them and gain wisdom from it, and making sure that we build not only a wise outlook, a common sense approach, and also make sure that we are trying to do things on our own. To say, well, okay, we can't solve the money issue, but we can solve our own money issue, so I'm gonna get on a balanced budget and quit spending money I don't have. We cannot solve mpox, but what we can do is start making sure that we have emergency preparedness medicines and antibiotics from places like Jace. We can't control the fact of what Trump says, or if he's gonna let RFK be backed, but we better be ready just in case we have another 4 years of a Kamala Harris. It's that close. Don't believe they won't try to manipulate that. And they may even use the mpox global scare to do it. Pay attention. Start taking responsibility and making sure you're covering your elements and taking care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. When you start doing that, these kind of things won't affect you as much. Am I worried about these 4 things? No, but what I do is I try to make sure that I have a friendly reminder of what's happening in the world, because it helps me be even more prepared in taking care of my family. Guys, pay attention to these stories. Again, my goal is to bring just the things that are coming each and every day, and hopefully we can gain a common sense and a conservative approach to it and gain wisdom as we try to raise our families in a crazy world. Is Harris going to be the next president for 4 years? I hope not. Gosh, I hope not. But if she is, are you prepared for it? These are just some of the things that are taking place. Guys, thank you for watching. God bless.